Mark Sheridan, Commercial Director for BAM UK and Ireland, turning over something in the region of 3.5 billion. Mark, is that right? Welcome to the show, mate.
Stop thinking about the title. If you want to become a commercial director, it's all the other stuff that you
Think
do.
about the inputs.
I'm talking about that kind of intellectual waste as well.
Yeah.
We spend time doing tasks that are highly repetitive, or we spend time doing tasks that are a correction of something that we've done previously. That's all waste. The most important thing for me and young professionals is
Hello and welcome to the Own the Build podcast with me, Paul Hemming. We are launching a new series in 2026 featuring one exclusive interview every month with a current or former commercial director. The shows will appear in your feed once a month on the last Wednesday of each month. And as I mentioned, it's an exclusive series featuring the UK's top directors. In terms of theme, what I guess I want to extract from this is kind of one of two things, as I've just been explaining to my guest here, who's smirking back at me because he's hearing it for the second time, is number one, spotlighting the journey that individuals have gone on to become commercial directors and what there is to learn from that. And secondly, what is amazing and world-class commercial leadership in 2026. So on that note, I'm a bit out of breath. This is embarrassing. I am delighted to welcome our first guest, Mark Sheridan, Commercial Director of Commercial Services for BAM UK and Ireland, who, as everyone will know, top 20 UK tier 1 main contractor, turning over something in the region of 3.5 billion. Mark, is that right? Welcome to the show, mate.
Well, thank you for having me. Delight to be here. Great introduction.
Thank you very much.
I hope I can live up to it.
I am absolutely sure you can. And, you know, for long-time listeners of the show, even short-time listeners, because I will, where possible, raise this at the start of every show where there is an interesting accent. They will know that I have a love of accents. And yours, as we were walking to the studio, Mark, I was sure I was hearing a Glaswegian accent, but little timid Englishman inside of me didn't think, is that Glaswegian? But it is a Glaswegian accent, isn't it? It's
definitely a Glaswegian accent. Over the years, it's softened, and I've tried my best to hide it, but there's no hiding it.
Well, you're down in London now, and is this the softened version?
This is my posh London accent.
It's very nice, and for those watching on YouTube, I've put a lovely colour background behind Mark, which might kind of showcase where his allegiances lie in Glasgow.
Oh, my allegiances are entirely to BAM, and it's a BAM green.
That is an excellent comeback. So, as I said, kind of let's split the show into two halves. First half being about you and your journey and commercial directorship. Just tell us about the path on which your career went from coming in at an earlier age to where you are today.
Sure. I guess it didn't really start in the way in which I thought it would. I always fancied being a volcanologist.
Right.
So I wanted to wear the tinfoil suit, travel around the world, go into Caldera, which is the middle of a volcano. But I didn't quite appreciate at the time that you needed to try hard at school for that kind of stuff.
Right. It's an issue that gets so many of us.
Yeah, or a wee bit harder than I did.
Yeah.
If I could go back, I would change that.
Would you really?
Yeah. I think that I may end up still doing what I'm doing, but getting myself more educated or more qualifications at the time would always be useful. Mm-hmm. And thinking about that, that's some piece of advice I would give everyone. But what happened to me was I ended up in the clearance system and looking through. And at that time, my dad was a QS. Didn't really know what one of those was. I knew
not very cool, is it?
I knew that he went to building sites most days, and saw that. I thought he does okay. I'll do that. I'll give that a bash.
Yeah.
And got into college and university. Found out a bit more about it. At that point, I did a year out with Glasgow City Council. So I did two and a half years, and then a year with Glasgow City Council, and then back to university to finish that off.
So you did it's a sandwich, what we'd call a sandwich. Yeah. 2 years uni, 1 year work placement, 1 year finish as a QS.
As a QS. And what that really taught me was that I liked the out on site part of it.
Okay.
There was, with the city council, who were a great place to work, there was a wee bit too much of the sitting in the
Back office almost, yeah.
And at that time, there wasn't really any computers or any of that sort of stuff, so it was lots of paper. There was a very odd thing that's going to make me sound and feel really old, which was called the comptometry room.
The comptometry room.
The comptometry room. There was a room of 6 people.
Okay.
And they had a huge thing that looked like a till, an old-fashioned till.
Yeah.
And all they did was add up all of the bills of quantities that came in to make sure that.
And is that an area where you were juniors in there? Is that like a rite of passage at the time? Was that something you had to do to kind of?
You didn't actually do that. There were 6 people employed to do that.
Just measure.
To just add up.
Really?
So this was a huge calculator, mechanical calculator, but it was a huge calculator, and that's all they did. And the rite of passage was delivering the bits of paper to them, because as you can imagine, they were quite grumpy.
Yeah.
Sitting there doing that every day, you're locked in this room, so you go and slide it under the door or run in and leave it at the end of the desk and run out.
And that was effectively kind of PQSing. Client side?
Yes, it was more client side.
Okay.
And certainly looking at it from that point of view, I always had an interest in the interactions that I had with contractors, QSs, and understanding what they did. And at the risk of sounding really daft, that always seemed a bit more rock and roll to me. Being
rock
on
and
site.
roll. I think I've heard it all now. Rock and roll.
In
Contractors
comparison.
QS. All jokes aside, I was a sub EQS, but without wanting to put the nose out of joint of all of our PQS listeners, to my mind, I always quite liked the contractor side. I felt a little bit more in it, if that made sense. It talked a bit more to who I was out on site, involved in the more nitty gritty, as opposed to I would struggle with like cost appraisals and stuff. That's not me, if that makes sense.
I think it makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's really about the comparison of one being better than the other. It's saying all of these things are needed.
Yeah.
Some people are suited to different elements.
I was a bit more rock and roll, maybe, Mark.
That was absolutely what it was. But to me, that's where I was. I was thinking, right, okay, I like the idea of dirty boots and hard hats and wandering around a building site.
And so you did a placement year at the kind of, let's call it client side for the council.
Yep.
Go back, finish your degree, and then do you think, right, I want to find a path into contracting effectively?
Yes, and at that time there was a thing, and they may still do it. There was a thing called the milk round, where lots of different contractors and things would come to the university. You'd have a bit of time with them. Got a couple of interviews out of that, and I ended up going to work for Edmund Nuttall, which is now part of BAM, civil engineering, in Newcastle. And that was great. I went there, spent some time with people in the industry. My first boss, a gentleman called Gareth Farrier, he was great with me. Still in the business, looked after me and made sure that I got all the basics done and understood how that worked. I think that what that taught me at that time was it was a wee bit too early for me to be away from home full time.
Because at that point you would be digging out in Newcastle.
Yes.
Okay. Pretty good place to be digging out in your 20s, I reckon.
Great place. But if I'm completely honest, I missed my mum.
Oh, really?
Hang
on a minute. You're meant to be rock and roll here, man.
Well, exactly. This is the dichotomy, isn't it? So I missed my mum. I missed the home cooked food. I missed
Celtic.
I refused to be drawn in that subject. I missed getting my ironing done and, all of those things that probably make me sound terrible. But I think at that point in my life, it was just a wee bit too early.
Okay.
So I ended up coming back to Glasgow and working for a company called Henry Boot. Mm-hmm. And that was great too. Did a lot of building work as part of that. And then received a phone call one day from Gareth Farrier. He says, we've got something that we're looking at in Ritchie's. It was Ritchie's at the time, became BAM Ritchie's.
Okay.
It's now BAM Ground Engineering, part of the business. And he said, do you want to come and have a chat? And I went and had a chat with him, came back to work for that part of the business. At that time, they didn't have a QS at all. So none of any description. So they are both a main contractor and a subcontractor, depending on the piece of work that they're doing. Got in there, it was quite a strange animal. Spent quite a long time there, built up the team, got the team to be maybe 5 or 6 QSs by the time I moved on.
And what were you, a managing QS, leading the team?
Eventually, yeah, commercial manager, leading the team after a number of years. I then went off and did a bit of work with our civil engineering part of the business in Scotland.
Which is Nuttall.
Which was Nuttall.
Okay, sorry.
Is now BAM Infrastructure.
Okay.
We'll need to do a flowchart or something at the end because it's complicated and I've been there a long time. And then after that, I came back to be the general manager or operations director of BAM Ritchie's, the ground engineering part of the business. And I love doing that. Very broad, working with the managing director, looking after P&L across the full scope of that, which was great because I always enjoyed the other parts of it. Yeah. And we'll talk about that later because it's really important that we enjoy the other parts of it. After that, I became the business improvement director of BAM Nuttall, as it was at the time, and really enjoyed that too. Very closely related, as it turns out, to lots of things that we do in the commercial side of the business, about making things better. Subsequent to that, a bit of reorganisation of the business. Yeah. So I became the commercial director of something called BAM Ventures, which was 4 distinct businesses that we had and still continue to have at that time. And at the same time, I was doing the director of commercial services.
And through, that's amazing. Like,
it's a big long story. Yeah, you probably need to edit that a bit.
There's a lot to it. I guess, aside from your time at Henry Boot,
yes,
it feels like the BAM group, whether it's Nuttall, we need a flowchart for sure, but that's been the company of your career in many ways, right? That's the theme through it, is that do you see what I mean?
Absolutely.
How long, because you've narrated there all of the different positions. Yeah. For how long were you in Newcastle, and like how long did it take you in each of those steps?
Well, Newcastle was relatively short.
Okay,
so that was
because you missed mummy.
Yes, and that was probably 12 to 18 months. Okay, and the rest of the time it's 3 to 5 years. Yeah, and that's one of the brilliant things about it. That change all the time has meant that I haven't necessarily needed to go anywhere else. So people talk about 25 years. It'll be 25 years this time next month. Okay. And so they say, well, 25 years doing the same thing. I haven't done the same thing for 25 years, done lots of different things in the business.
Sounds like
touched lots of different parts of the business, had lots of great opportunities.
Because lots of the people that we've interviewed at director level will kind of advocate for staying at a company for more than 3 years. And this might just be kind of a generalization, but a lot of like the younger cohort of QSs, like managing QS and below, will kind of be plotting out their career and thinking like focused on money, let's say. And, if I move around, I can make a bit more money if I jump every 2 or 3 years, which is true. However, speaking to leaders like yourself, been told by the theme generally seems to be there was one place where I stayed for a period of time. Now, as I said, BAM, Nuttall, etc. seems to have been a theme through your career, but there has actually been a lot of change within that in terms of your role. But is there something in that for you, in that, you talked about Gareth as someone who seems to be like a bit of a mentor to you, that there it is actually a place where, although it's evolved and your role has evolved, you have maintained relationships with a business and the key people within that business?
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely correct. When you stay in the same place for a long time, those relationships grow and grow. Yeah. And there's lots of people who have been there a similar amount of time. But I think what I would say, if I had any piece of advice for people, is try your very best to look at the opportunity and the opportunity in the slightly longer term based on what it is that you want to achieve. So some people, if they want to increase their salary and reach that kind of cap in what they're doing, I don't have any problem with that.
Move on,
That's their right. That's their choice. Other people, if they want to look at that in the longer term, well, you've got to look at what provides me with the best opportunity, and not necessarily the best opportunity for right this minute.
Yeah, because that's the thing, isn't it? Say you've been at a company for 3 years and you think, oh, this is a good company for me. And actually, I've built a great relationship with my director and the ops people, and I've got this relationship, and I feel like I've got a load of credit in the bank, but I didn't get the money that I wanted to this year. Right, for whatever reason. And I know, because my best mate's working at this company over there and he's on 5-10 grand more than me, I know I could go and do that. You could make that call for that short-term gain versus actually there's a longer-term plan for me. So did you, at any point of your career, think, I want to be a commercial director? Did you set out with that vision?
No. But what I think I did set out with was the thought process and the idea that I would like to change things for the better. And as part of that, I started to understand through time, and you'll see this in many of the books. I don't know exactly what the origins are, but we talk about the sphere of influence. And, some things are within your influence, some things are outside your influence. And if you can grow your sphere bigger, a lot of those things become inside that sphere of influence. So for me, that constant thought of how do I make this better?
I need more influence.
I need more influence. So it wasn't necessarily about titles. Titles kind of come with it. It was more about, right, okay, if I want to change this, or I want to change that, or I'm looking to make an improvement here, or I can see something that I don't feel is right, well, actually, I need to get my influence big enough to be able to do something about that. And that continues to be my thought process today. It's not necessarily about what is the title, what is it that you're getting in terms of money. It's always about, right, okay, well, if I want to influence this thing, I need to be there, I need to be here. And that's the thought process for me.
But that's why this whole series is really interesting, right? Because social media kind of paints this path of it's do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. But actually, all the commercial directors that we've spoken to, it's kind of a wiggly line for everyone, and you kind of end up some bits of luck here. You make your own. It's never simple. Was there a moment in your career that you felt was like an unlocking, like you look back as like a seminal moment which helped you to get to where you are today?
I think for me, it's at the point where you realise there are things that could be done better. So you go through that whole learning experience and you say, right, okay, how do we do this? Because you can leave university, but you don't know how to be a QS for some time after that. And it's when you get to the point of saying, well, this could be better. We could do something different with this. But at the moment, that's not within my ability to do. So when that realisation kicks in, you say, right, okay, well, what am I going to do about that? Well, I need to be over there. I need to be over there. I need to be holding that position. I need to have that influence in this area. And that's what's always been the thing that just took me to the point of saying, right, okay, well, how do we make it better?
Improvement.
Yeah, and that continues to be the case today. How do we make it better?
But how, I built C-Link as a business because we looked at the way procurement was working in construction and thought, this is ridiculous. It can be better, right? And there were many things that I looked at as a QS and thought, oh, this could be loads better. But it's quite a jump to think that in your mind, I focus on business improvement and then think I need to be in a position of influence to get that. How do you make that step then?
So there's two competing things going on at the same time. So when we look back at that and think about that as the kind of end position or near the end position, we miss out all the incremental steps in between. And they were small steps. So, I think one of the first things that I got excited about was how do we record things properly in an allocation sheet. That's my Glasgow accent making that difficult to say. But just that recording of things in a slightly better way. How do we do that? And then that grows from there. You say, what about risk and opportunity? What about change? What about the quality side of things? What about documentation? And that side grows at the same time as your career's growing.
And so, in effect, were you kind of putting your head above the parapet in some ways by saying, look, we don't have a document for this. I'm going to create one and we're going to improve the way we operate on my site and therefore all of the sites thereafter. Is that what you were doing? You were just championing improvement across the board?
Well, to begin with, I was very lucky in that I was the only QS there, right? So whatever I said, that's kind of right.
This QS is good, isn't it?
And then through time, you see more and more of that. And as you get more exposure to the business, you get exposure to larger and more complex contracts and contractual arrangements. You understand all the other things that could be done better. And we had the conversation earlier about waste in the business.
Yeah.
And you start to understand that we're losing money here.
Yeah.
And actually doing things twice is you're doing it 100% of the time, too many. So you start to think about, right, okay, this is related to the money. It's related to the result. It's related to the bottom line. And so that progresses over time.
And am I right in saying that you were the first QS into what is now the BAM group?
No, not at all.
Okay.
So at that time, that was the ground engineering part. It's called BAM.
Okay.
It was called Ritchie's at the time, became BAM Ritchie's. So they just had a need for a bit more commercialism at the time. There were lots of QS, long history of QSs in BAM. Not
HBG,
all BAM,
it would
HBG,
have been,
BAM construction. Say we definitely need a flow chart. Or an
I worked for HBG on a couple of projects. So
lots and lots of QSs at that time. But a wee bit peculiar in the role in that you were a subcontractor and
a
principal contractor, depending on which job you were on. So that was always good. And as you say, you grow influence and you grow your sort of voice within the business. So it's not really sticking your head above the parapet. It's about saying, right, okay, I am now in a position where we can start to talk about this. I have got some influence. And I have built up the kind of commercial credit in the bank to be able to start to have this conversation and have people take you seriously.
And the commercial credit in the bank that you'd built up, how would you define that?
Well, there's a number of different things. Ultimately, when you work in commercial, it's about the bottom line.
Yeah.
But what I would say is there's a lot of different ways to get to that bottom line. You can be highly aggressive in that. You can be very passive in that. You can be very clever at that. Lots of different ways.
Yeah,
probably a combination of all those things. So always, you've got to be making money. That's really part of it. But at the same time, you've got to be thinking beyond your boundaries, and you've got to be saying, right, okay, well, I have an interest in these other things. So I'm interested in safety. Why am I interested in safety? I'm interested in safety because inherently when we are safe, we're more profitable because we don't have all those days downtime. We're not paying large fines. Better at environmental, better at social sustainability, better in digital, better in quality, better in engineering. Well, that's all about the bottom line dropping out all the time. So widening your sort of vision out to say, right, okay, I need to understand all these other things as well at the same time, I think gives many more opportunities to say, right, okay, well, how do we make money at this?
It strikes me that because you talked about improvement, you've been involved in business improvement. You're in commercial services now, which is a lot about improvement of the wider group as well. Asking directors, what is the one thing that they want what's the one bit of advice they would give to young team members? One of the themes that we've had come back is curiosity. Ask the questions, and everything you've just described there is curiosity. So, like, is that something which, again, asking for like that seminal moment, or you're just reflecting generally? Were you a really curious person about not just tunnel vision QSing?
So, having watched and listened to the podcast, I hear the curiosity thing come up quite often, and I do agree with that. But I thought, well, okay, what's behind that?
Yeah.
How do we get to that place?
You agree, but you're going to improve it.
Well, I might not improve it, but certainly add to it. So I started to think about, well, actually, it's constructive challenge.
Yeah.
And the constructive bit's really important.
Okay.
Constructive challenge and imagination. So it's something we don't talk about an awful lot is that imagination. So the ability to be able to imagine it a slightly different way and say, well, what if it was this and what if it was that? Yeah. And that's what, in me, that's what spurred the curiosity. And say, well, I can imagine this a different way.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm going to give you a slightly different answer and say the most important thing for me and young professionals is imagination. Imagine our world being different.
Yeah, as opposed to just being like, why are we doing this? And asking questions, which is all a good trait. You're actually saying, could this be different? Because is that something then that defines your career, is that you're constantly trying to imagine a slightly different, improved version of today's world?
Yes, and that continues to today. And the curiosity is a really important part of the imagination piece. Because if you're not curious, you limit the number of things that you can imagine.
Yeah.
But again, I think that's just about creating safe spaces for people to be able to have a failure.
Yeah.
Because failures are massively important in understanding what you could do better. If you get to a point where there's never any failure, then you're probably not learning anything at that point, or you've cracked it. And you've got a super yacht, and you're living in the Bahamas,
So moving on to leadership then and current role.
Yeah.
Roughly, if you were to look at the org chart of your team, roughly how many fall within your remit?
Listen, it's an interesting place because we operate a kind of matrix managed style. Okay. So we've got the teams that are primarily operational, and they all have their commercial directors, my peers, and they work with that. And then we've got a small team who work in the areas of commercial training, commercial process, commercial assurance. And so it's really about how they work together. So it's about taking everybody in the entire business, about 650 commercial people in the business, and saying, right, okay, how do we use everybody in the best way here so that we can get ourselves to a better place?
So it's almost like we've got, obviously, projects, regions, and kind of divisions as well within BAM. Yeah. And then, but if you're looking at that entire cohort, which you're trying to improve the assurance of, the training of, and the general bring the level up.
So they are the assistants as well, right? They're an integral part of this because, you need all of those people to do that training. But I think that you then bump up against something that I would describe as the difference between commercial management and commercialism.
Okay.
So at the point where we say, well, this is all on the commercial function, I think we probably miss out somewhere there. Because that's why you get other people not understanding that they've received an instruction or not being able to recognise a change. So you've got to understand, how do we upskill people with that commercialism? And that's across all the disciplines.
And talk to me about, just focusing on that, that's a really interesting point, the difference between commercial management and commercialism.
Commercial management is about following the process. And it's about understanding all of the things that need to be done. It's about making sure that we stick with all of the notices that need to be done, and we follow the contracts
the administration
as much
as we can.
Yeah. The commercialism.
This is the bit that gets you excited, isn't it?
Well, that's the imagination piece.
Okay.
So that's about saying, well, okay, how do we cut and carve this slightly differently? How do we get ourselves to a place where we have got a better opportunity here? How do we get closer to our customers? How do we get closer to our supply chain?
Yeah.
How do we make opportunities for all?
So as part of commercial services, are you trying to improve the commercial management and the commercialism? Like how?
Yes, both. Yeah. So we have something that probably giving away a trade name here, but something that we've designed that is called commercial accountability mindset.
Okay.
And so we take anyone in the business who wants to come along through that. There are about 6,500 employees, direct employees.
Which is basically how do you improve?
It starts with, how do we make money?
Yeah.
How does this business make money? Because it would surprise you how many people within the industry don't know how we make money. They just assume that it's the cost plus a percentage and away you go.
Yeah.
All these other things, company tied costs and prelims and all that stuff, that's a bit different. So we take them through, this is how we make money. And we take the very simple principle that we say, well, can you make it 10 or 20 pounds better per day? Can you add 20 pounds worth of value? That can either be by being better with our cost, better with our spend, or it can be about being better with our value. But can you just make it better?
With the value. All comes back to imagination, doesn't it?
Well, a wee bit. And some stuff's simple, right? But when people do that, and there are 6,500 people in our business,
making an extra 10 quid a day,
260 working days a year. Yeah. We need a QS to work out how much that is, right?
But we've got two in the room, but I'm not going to do it.
But it's a lot of money. And so, it's working at that kind of micro scale, but also working at the macro scale. Yep. That says, right, okay, well, you can't solve everything with that. We do have other challenges that we come up against that are contractual, that are legal, that, they need a different approach. But it's about tackling all those things at the same time. And I think that commercialism, that understanding. Mindset. Well, every year, I'm sure we all go to these updates by legal companies. And every year they've told me records.
Never changes that, does it?
It never changes. Every single year since I started. It's probably now in my mind data.
Okay.
But I think that the point of that is saying, right, well, actually there's some fundamentals here that just never changed that need to be looked after. And it's helping people to understand that. And if you don't have an entire project team that understand why they are producing a record, then
the motivation isn't there.
Exactly. And why are you trying to understand that we've had a change? Why are you trying to understand that the program's slipping? All of that kind of stuff. So helping people with that commercialism ultimately ends up back in the commercial management and drops itself down to the bottom line.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting that you define commercial management and commercialism, because the creating a definition between the two and the fact that anyone can have commercialism in their day-to-day, right? It's the entire project team can have that psyche and that mindset, and that would in turn create a much better project, right?
And just to slight semantic, it's not that anyone could, it's that everyone does.
Okay.
So
the entire business is...
The entire business. It doesn't matter about the role, doesn't matter about the position. It's, if you take any task in the business, you say, could we do that better? And everyone does it, you're going to be better.
100%. And I want to draw you to the conversation we were having in the cafe.
Okay.
Before we stepped into the studio. It was such a good conversation. I was saying, stop it now. Stop it, save it. One thing that you told me is that kind of you have this anecdotal ambition or a stated ambition of saving a day a week of a QS's time. Could you just explore that for us?
So let's call it an aspiration.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, and it's interesting when you say saving. I think I would describe it as freeing up. So
I love how every time I say something, you improve it. It's really in your psyche, isn't it? This improvement.
Yeah, hopefully. But yeah, it's about saying, how do I free up that time?
Yeah.
How do I make it available for people to do value generation?
Yeah.
And by that, I don't mean going and taking money out of the client's pocket.
Yeah.
I just mean value generation in terms of, can we be better with the cost? Can we be better with the value? Can I think about how we upskill our people? Can I think about how we ensure that we do the things that we do? And so if you get yourself to that place and you're saying, well, if we can do all of those things that make it better.
Yeah.
And the phrase I've used with you before is, it's a business that spends, in an industry that spends a huge amount of time firefighting.
Yeah.
And not an awful lot of time on fire prevention. And if we could get it to the point where we did fire prevention one day a week, everybody in the business, everyone listening at home or in their office or car or whatever, ask yourself, would we have a better business if everybody spent time on fire prevention one day a week?
And would we have better projects? Would we all have better margins? Would the supply chain operate in a better world? Like, it would just be so much better for everyone. And when you contextualize it in the BAM group, just that single aspiration of, could we unlock a day a week? That's 650 QSs. That's 650 days a week. Like,
yes. Yeah.
Just imagine what that would do for the business. If you think about QSing as a profit center, a risk reduction center, like, it would be transformational. So is that, how do you, in your current role, which is kind of improvement focused, training focused, but at the same time, we must get the commercial management right. And that is like almost a bureaucratic element that you have to work your way through. How do you walk towards that stated ambition of unlocking a day a week?
So it's really in those three areas. So you've got commercial process.
Yeah.
So that's really what should we do and are we efficient in doing it?
Yeah.
You've got commercial training. So how do we upskill people? And that includes the commercialism. So how do we get ourselves to a better place? And then you've got commercial assurance where you're saying, are we actually doing what we say we do? So when you're checking through all of those things all the time, what you're essentially doing is looking for areas of improvement in the business. The kind of flip side of what you might call that is waste.
Yeah.
So you're looking to eliminate waste in the business. And when I talk about waste, I don't mean screwing up a piece of paper and throwing it in the bin. Showing my age there because I know no one's got pieces of paper anymore. But exactly. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about that kind of intellectual waste as well.
Yeah.
Where we spend time doing tasks that are highly repetitive, or we spend time doing tasks that are a correction of something that we've done previously. That's all waste. And we spoke before about the kind of Giri Get It Right initiative and some work that they've done with contractors over many years now. And they've assessed over time that they think there's about 21% waste in our business. So if you could reduce your cost in any business, whichever business you're in, by 21% and stick that on the bottom line,
happy days.
Happy?
Yeah.
In an industry that works on incredibly fine margins, would that be transformational?
Absolutely.
Yes, it would.
For everyone.
Even if you only did a quarter of that.
Yeah.
So, I always find that interesting to say, right, okay, that's the way in which we work towards it. I think that sometimes we get locked into that one day will be a Friday or it will be a Tuesday or but actually it needs to be spread over
2 hours
time.
a day. Yeah.
And saying, right, okay, incrementally, how do we just get better at that? I think that technology helps as well.
Yeah.
Digitization and kind of moving away from some of the things that we perhaps are really, really wedded to.
Yeah.
As QSs, we've got a massive love story with Excel spreadsheets, which have their place.
Yeah.
They absolutely do have their place. But when you get into Excel spreadsheets and you don't know which version you're working on and someone has changed it somewhere else and somebody else has had a look at it and the formula doesn't quite work anymore and they've stole it for the previous job where the formula didn't work.
Or just all the data is stuck on an Excel spreadsheet, not go into the...
And it's very local.
Exactly.
And it's not subject to analysis across a wider portfolio. I think that when you start to look at those things, you can say, right, okay, is there another way of doing that?
Yeah.
Can we have a system to replace some of these things? Can we work with our ERP system, which we're doing at the moment, looking at that to say, right, okay, can we improve what traditionally I would call, showing my age again, the back office function?
Yeah.
Can we make that slicker? Can we get ourselves to a place where people on the project are able to make better business decisions quicker?
Data.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that's about how you say, well, okay, we're going to fight in all those fronts to say, right, we bring it up to the place we're in the right place digitally. If we have got the right processes and quality systems involved there, if we upskill people to the right level, and we make sure that we are doing what we said we would do.
Yeah.
That's, to my mind, how you get there. Will we ever get there? I don't know, because there'll probably be something else to improve at that point.
Yeah.
But I think that that's my kind of aspiration.
Let's imagine a utopia where in 5 years' time, the things that you see as the challenge today are solved. How does a QS's kind of day-to-day change?
I think about that a lot, and I think about my day-to-day and how that's changed over time.
Okay.
So when I first started,
Putting paper under the door.
Well, I needed to book some time on the site desktop. Yeah.
So
I could get an hour a week to write a letter. We sent letters back and forward to each other. You know, you had to book them in the booking in book.
Yeah.
You had to write all the things up by hand. You then had to send them into the office to be typed.
Yeah.
They got sent back to you, all of that sort of stuff. And the reality of that was exactly the things that I'm talking about. That was all those things that took time.
Yeah.
Massively important that you did them, but they took time. And so we moved throughout that. So in 5 years' time, I would give you the same answer that, 22-year-old Mark would have given you.
Yeah.
Of, I don't know. The point is to fix the problems and then look at what comes up after that and say, right, okay, how do we move on and get to that place? Obviously, our friend AI is kicking in at the moment and getting involved. So we need to see how that develops and evolves. But it's that constant movement of saying, do you know what, if we don't improve with it, then we'll find ourselves at a disadvantage.
And procurement is a topic close to my heart.
Yeah.
That's the business that we've built. And being a subcontractor, I have been procured by many, many main contractors over the years of my career. Just when you think about waste, how do you contextualize waste during the procurement process generally? Because I don't want to make this a BAM specific thing, but across the board as main contractors, when I was getting procured as a subby, the whole process was so clunky for both sides.
Yes, and I think that remains in places, and the industry's certainly got an issue with that. But if you take it in the context of waste, I send out, or I used to send out 5 tender packages, knowing that 4 of them would be redundant.
Okay.
So that's 80% waste, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's not waste because you should be learning something from those other 4, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
But just stick with me.
Yeah, go on.
So where that leads me to is saying, right, okay, well, how do you have more sort of collaborative partnerships? And the industry still suffers a lot from the combative nature.
Yeah.
And how do we race to not at the bottom always, but how do we race to the cheapest? How do we cut things? How do we get the margins taken away? And I think a lot of that is about saying, right, okay, wins, losses, all of that sort of stuff. But actually, if you start to think about that in a more collaborative way, and collaboration's an interesting word to me, because lots of people explain it to me, and what they actually explain to me is cooperation.
Yeah.
Right? And in my mind, and I'm sure somebody will hit me with an Oxford dictionary or whatever, but when you have cooperation, that is a group of people working towards one goal.
Yeah.
Some will be winners, some will be losers. When you collaborate, that's everybody getting out of it what they need to get out of it. And that's the difference between the two. And so when you move to that collaborative place, when you start to have a supply chain partner, I know we talk about it a lot, and I do this myself, so I'm just about to give myself a hard time as well. When we talk about subcontractors, even the terminology, sub is in there. And so actually, the system is set up to say, here's the hierarchy.
Yeah.
This is how this works.
And and this is not a reflection on BAM. This is my reflection of a subcontractor, having worked for probably 20 different main contractors during my career, probably even more than that because I did loads of little jobs to start with. I would often walk into a project or a project office and the word collaboration would be kind of decorated, let's say, across that project. And certainly on some projects and some relationships, I probably wouldn't define it as collaboration. I'd probably define it as cooperation, where you feel like, this is, we're both in it to make money and we're going to do that. But I would often feel like it was a meaningless marketing phrase that was kind of pasted on the wall as opposed to something tangible, which and bear in mind I was a curtain walling, cladding, critical path QS for a subby. I guess it often felt to me like, where is that collaboration? So I just want to ask you a few reflections on that. And it's not a BAM thing. That's just a general sentiment thing.
I will bet you that it felt a bit like that when you were pricing the documents as well.
Yeah.
And even in those packages that you're receiving, you get a feel for that.
You 100% do.
You get a feel for, this is good, this is a good group of people. When they say these things, they actually mean it.
Yeah.
When they say these things, no, they don't. And that then becomes about being discerning about who your client is.
Yeah.
And being brave and saying, do you know what? Doesn't match my values.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm not gonna go and do a piece of work for them.
Yeah.
And that's at every level. So whether you're tier one or whether you are at the very beginning of the supply chain, you've got to say to yourself, who do I want my customers to be? Who do I want my clients to be?
Who am I and who am I working with?
And that requires a bit of bravery. And so you start to say at every level, well, who do I want my customers to be? And do I actually know them?
Yeah.
And do I understand what it is that they want? There's a great old story, I don't know where it came from, about tier one contractor getting very upset because they didn't win a job because the bridge that they had priced had been rejected, and they found out that someone else won it with a tunnel. And when they asked the question, the client said, I just wanted to get to the other side of the river.
Okay.
Nobody said it needed to be a bridge.
Yeah.
So that's, whether that's true or not, who knows?
Yeah.
But that's part of understand your customer. Understand your customer at every point. From the rest of us, understand your supply chain.
Yeah.
And that goes for subcontractors as well. And we are all guilty of the stuff that I will moan about a subcontractor doing, I'm probably doing it to the client.
This is like a favourite thing of mine to say is that main contractor would complain about not getting the feedback they wanted on a tender from their client. I've had conversations with main contractors about this, and at the same time, their subbies would be like, haven't had any feedback about how I did on that tender. And it's this is not like about bashing either side. It's just how do we work towards a place where everyone is happier and more content and making more money.
And I think a lot of that is, one of the things I've learned over the years is cliches are cliches because they're true.
Yeah.
Right? That's why they
It's only a cliche because of that reason.
Because it's true.
Yeah.
And so, that idea of being able to sort of walk a mile in someone else's shoes, you've got to be able to do that with your customer, with your client, and you've got to be able to do it with your supply chain. So
tough, isn't it, as a
at every
main
level,
contractor?
you should be saying, well, hang on a second, why is that happening?
Yeah.
Why did that produce that outcome? How do we get to this place?
Yeah.
Could we do something to affect it to behave differently, to get a different outcome next time? Can we understand it in a better way? But I think if everybody in the industry starts to do a bit of that and says, well, can I see it from your point of view? I was listening to one of your podcasts this morning and you were talking about delay damages and how to avoid them and everything else. And the one answer that wasn't given was, don't be late. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So there's a part of me, tier one contractor there, saying, well, actually, this is dead easy.
Yeah.
You told me you were going to do something. Yeah. Just do it.
And that's me being the subby there, isn't it? Trying to get out of it.
Well, and again, that's just about understanding it from that other point of view. And
that's a valid point.
And it's also about me saying as a tier one contractor, well, actually, did I load a whole load of risk into that particular package that wasn't really sensible? The subcontractor was unable to manage that risk. I didn't put the risk in the right place. Yeah. And therefore, I've driven the outcome. Yeah. So it's about always, whichever direction it is, saying, can I understand better what it is that this person's trying to get out of this? And that takes it back to that collaborative piece, not the cooperative piece. Cooperation's good. It's a good start. But the collaboration, I think, is
where really the magic happens.
Yeah. And again, that means that everybody wins, which might be utopia.
Yeah. Which, if that's what we all want to do, we all come to work to make money and go home safely, don't we? So that's the world that we want to create. So just talking about commercial teams now.
Yep.
How would you define or describe your own personal leadership style? And was it something that you crafted and changed over time?
It always interests me, the leadership style, and getting into that kind of silo of it's this or it's that or the next thing. And yeah, over the years I've thought about that, and I think that it's situational. So, follow the football a lot, as we've alluded to a wee bit, and football managers, and the idea that you can give someone a clip round the ear, or you can give them an arm round the shoulder.
And it'll be different for A versus B.
Absolutely. And so it's about understanding the situational needs.
Yeah.
And it's about having the tools there to say, right, okay, if I need to be a bit firmer here, how do I do it?
Yeah.
If I need to be a bit softer here, how do I do it? If this takes an analytical approach, how do I do it? And I think that speaks to where we are with good commercial teams as well. They have all of those different attributes in the team.
Yeah.
And you've got to be able to say, right, okay, in this particular instance, this is what I think I need. And I think that if you get too penned into what is your leadership style, you maybe miss out on the availability of some of the other styles.
I hear you and I agree with you, and it's nuance and fluidity is like with every individual, it's almost different. But you talk about tool set there, how and building that tool set, and you almost with leading a team you can't build the tool set without making mistakes along the way, right? We're all doing it. If you're talking to someone who is stepping into leadership and you reflect on your journey, I say this because when I stepped into leadership, it was kind of just like, there you go, crack on. And I was fortunate enough to have some old mentors and some good people to talk to, reflect on, but you just kind of thrown into it. So, and that seems to be the way a lot in construction is you're good at your job, you're now the managing QS. Just what would your advice be about leadership to someone stepping into the role?
Lots of times it is that you were good enough to do the last job, so you'll be good enough to do the next one up.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
I think we've moved away from that a wee bit, and we've got a lot better at working those things out. But my advice would be, think about the idea that every relationship creates a result. Every single one.
Yeah.
Every interaction creates a result. So those relationships are really important. And it was intentional that I didn't say good result because some of those relationships will create a bad result.
Yeah.
But understanding that every single one of those relationships is important, and every single one of those relationships will create a result, and you need to be alive to that. Now, it's not always terminal. You can have a bad result and go back and say, that was a bad result. I think we need to do something different next time. Or we had a really good result there. How do we repeat that? So I think that's my advice for people. Understand that each and every relationship with every single other human being that you come across
matters,
will generate a result.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I always felt that, and I've talked about this before on the show, that in some ways you need to be able to sell to everyone on a job as a QS, whether you're a commercial director, whether you're a commercial managing QS, whether you're talking to your subbies, whether you're talking to your client, whether you're talking to your team, in that, for this to be a success, this group, let's talk my commercial team, to be a success, I've got to sell the dream to my team that they're going to go, they're going to learn, they're going to grow, etc., etc. I've got to sell the dream to the subbie to come on this job and work this job with us for this reason. And then you've got to constantly build these relationships with your clients so that the result is as good. It's not always going to be great, right? But I view that as sales. I don't know how that makes you, like selling almost. I don't know how that makes you feel.
Yes, I think you could absolutely describe it as that. And I think that's a reasonable way to articulate it. I often think about this as telling people why. There's a weird thing that happens in human psychology, right? That when you've got human beings who are under 16, when you ask them not to do something, you will immediately tell them why. If you've got kids,
she's only 7 months,
right? so you're coming to a point where you recognise this. They go to run across the road. Don't run across the road because you get run over. There's a why.
Yeah.
Once they get over 16, we assume that they know the why. So we just give them a clip round the ear and go, don't be so stupid, running across the road.
Yeah.
But actually, when you go back to that why, that's the sales.
Yeah, okay.
That's the pitch. Why? Why are we doing this?
And so how do you use that practically with your team?
Well, I think it's about all the time explaining what you said, that you'll be upskilled, you'll be trained better, you'll have better knowledge, you'll have better understanding. Ultimately, that'll mean that you're better recompensed. It'll mean that you have more standing, you'll grow your sphere of influence.
Yeah.
And it's having that conversation again with everyone. So it's having that conversation with your clients as well. Well, actually, if X, Y, and Z happens, this is why we're trying to do what we're doing. We'll give you the what we're doing and how we're doing it in a minute. But actually, let me talk to you about why we're doing it. Let me talk to you about why we're building a bridge and not a tunnel.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think it's doing that and doing that in the supply chain as well. Here is why this happened. Here is why we're doing it this way. This is why we want you to do that. In my mind, that's really important as an industry, and we don't do enough of it.
And if you could change one habit that you see in commercial teams today, what would it be?
Stop treating it like something that you've got to win at.
Funny that you say that, because my very first, he was actually contracts manager, but kind of had quite a big influence on my career, or my early psyche would describe it as a battle. It would be, and we were the subby, how do we beat these guys?
Yeah, and
that sorry, go on.
No, you're absolutely right. I think it's a great observation. But lots of time, all the things that we spoke about previously, as soon as you need to win or you feel compelled to win, all of those things disappear. You don't need to do those anymore because you're just trying to win.
But how do you do that? I hear you, I agree with you. But for a commercial team whose primary KPI, going back to what we said earlier, is can we make the money? And on a contract with masses of variability, masses of risk, lots of opportunity along the way as well, but a slender margin.
Yep.
Where the KPI is hit the margin or grow it.
Yep.
How do you separate that objective with the mindset of winning?
So I would ask that as a question and say, if we put the risk in the right place with those who can manage it correctly, if we identify the change, if we understand what the client wants, if we understand what the supply chain wants, if we have better procedures, if we have upskilled people, if we make sure we're doing what we say we're doing.
Those decisions
would we be better?
Yeah.
Would we have a better bottom line?
Yeah.
Would that look more like winning?
Yeah. So what you're kind of articulating there is, like, we don't need to win on the micro. We need to win on the macro, which is like the 650 or the 6,500 staff. If we change their psyche to be more, to have more commercialism and to win every single day, the bottom line works. But winning on a main to sub or project level, should be less of a thing.
Well,
it's difficult, isn't it?
I mean, I'm thinking as you're talking, and actually I don't necessarily really have a problem with winning.
Yeah.
Other than there's a counter side to that.
Who's
and that
losing?
means that somebody needs to lose.
Yeah.
And actually, is there another way that says, do you know what, we can all get something out of this, and we can all move this on to a better place, and actually we can increase margins for everyone.
Yeah.
So on those individual packages, on those individual projects, they all matter, right?
Yeah.
And you've got to have a robust conversation. You've got to have a challenge, and that challenge has got to be sensible. And all of those things, you've got to do all that. That's part of every day, right? That all happens. But actually, is there a route to everybody gets some kind of win out of this?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you do it to your detriment, or you just,
Absolutely.
you pay whatever invoice comes in or any of that sort of stuff. But you say, well, actually, is there a better way of doing this? If we had that conversation much, much earlier and we come up with a better solution that generated a slightly bigger margin, well, actually, we wouldn't be having this conversation now about why we've got a problem and why I need to beat you.
Yeah, because I ask you that question so if you could change one habit across commercial teams, what would it be? That is I think it's a really hard question to answer. And when I try and answer it myself, where I kind of alight to is around the singular KPI of margin. The habit I focus on is that is an unhealthy habit, that the primary KPI, like a QS, goes once a year for their appraisal and says, ta-da, look, I made that margin for you, give me the pay rise, right? Which I know is dramatically oversimplifying what a QS does. But I feel like if that KPI could be better shaped in some way, we might work in a better industry. However, my big caveat to that is, how on earth do you change that when we're all businesses and the margins are so weak?
I can absolutely see where you're coming from. My thoughts on that are, is there another way of looking at that says, even though you
more imaginative way?
Well, even if you keep that KPI,
yeah,
are there other routes to getting to the answer? Is there something that I could do even better than that KPI that is not just screw the supply chain?
Yeah.
That is not just, put in a whole load of fictitious
VOs and annoy the client
and hope that we get paid for them. So is there a better way of doing that? Is there a bit around saying, can we streamline things? Can we do improvements? Can we think about technically how we do things in a different way? Can we be having those conversations? And that doesn't happen overnight. That is in a space of saying, right, okay, incrementally over time, how do we get ourselves to a different place? I think that KPI is useful in that if someone does all of those things, they can be measured against someone who doesn't.
Yeah.
And in my mind, you'll get a better answer. But I think it's really, really difficult in an industry that is at a place where your margins are so fine.
Yeah.
That really is the difference between you being in business and not being in business.
Exactly. And as I asked you that question, I was thinking about what my answer would be myself. And I'm not discounting the credibility of margin as a KPI. It's obviously business critical, so therefore it has to be. But is there a way that it could be shaped or reimagined or coupled with 2 or 3 other KPIs that might actually shape a better industry? But I do feel like the symptom is the margins that we get from the developers, right?
Well, it is, but I can speak about BAM for a second and say, well, actually, some of the other things we get measured on are not that. They are about social sustainability. They are about environmental sustainability. They are about digitisation. They are about all of these other things. The quality systems that we have. Something that we've done at the moment is have a collaboration with the Eden Project.
Really?
Yeah. So, how do we make our projects more environmentally sustainable? That's amazing. So, as you start to have those things and you say, well, actually, this is maybe the route to the better answer on that first KPI.
Yeah.
Is it a bit too narrow? When you do all of these other things, do you get a better outcome? But again, going back to that competitive nature of the business, and actually we've got an industry that is built on one word, and that word is cost. And actually, can we shift it to another word, and that word is value? So how do you value things as opposed to how do you cost things? Yeah. I think lots of people think that the cost plus 10%, 15%, 20%, whatever it happens to be, that's the answer. Well, actually, that's not the value of the thing.
To your tunnel and bridge example,
absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
So how do you shift it to the value place a wee bit more? And that helps when you look at these other KPIs. So some of our customers now are much more interested in what does your carbon footprint look like? All of those kind of things. So you say, well, actually, that's really important to us.
Yeah.
How are you helping the local community? How are you creating jobs in the supply chain? All of that stuff's beginning to be important to our clients, and therefore it's important to us.
Yeah, and I mean, it does feel like the oil tanker is shifting slightly for us as an industry in terms of mindset, and hopefully that does something for our margins, Mark. Because at the heart of it, if we could just move the dial on the margins, we would still have so much to work through, and it would not make things perfect, but it would ease the woes.
So again, that goes back to the bravery piece. And can you be brave as an industry? And can you say, I'm going to be really discerning about my client? Whichever part of the...
I agree, right? But and so you're getting me here to my emotional, passionate point. And I've talked about it on the show so much. And I feel like it's a bit like I sit here and talk about this. Like, can we be discerning as an industry and say to our clients, we want change. It has to change. Maybe you and I could, right, as two contractors, but contractor 3 comes in and takes the job at the margin that the client wants. Like, how do we as a collective shift that narrative? Because like I say, it does feel like oil tanker slight shift, but we want it to be moving much faster.
So it's really difficult.
Yeah.
You've got to shift the conversation to value. And what is the value you're getting out of this? Now, I had a brief conversation with someone in the kind of digital space about the advent of AI and all of that kind of stuff, and their ability to be able to capture information, take us to a place where the timescales will be known because AI will be able to work that out, and the cost will be known because AI will be able to work that out too. The only area you're left with at that point is quality. And who's going to provide me with the highest quality? Well, that's really a conversation about who's going to give me the highest value. And
interesting.
So if you get to that place and say, I don't know if that's right or wrong, but it was an interesting take on it. If you get yourself to a place where you're saying, well, actually, if we are all a bit more discerning about who our client is. So lots of times I'd have conversations with people and they say, oh, this happened or that happened and it didn't go well. I should have known during the tender. Because the way in which they were behaving at that time.
I knew it.
And sometimes I think every job interview you've ever went for, someone will have said to you, remember you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. You're going there to find out if you want to work for that company. As soon as we get into contracting, we forget that. And so we go, well, there's a tender lying on the table here.
We want it.
I'm going to price it and I've got to win it. Well, actually, can you be a bit more sort of discerning about that and say, well, actually, is it really worth it for me? Because we end up then taking on jobs and they don't make money. They lose money. They lose substantial amounts of money. And you say, well, why did that happen? Well, the reason that happened was that we didn't do the due diligence in the first place. And lots of people have told me over time, I knew that was going to happen. And there's a wee bit inside me that's very Glaswegian. It says, well, what did you do it for then? Why did you do that?
That was the full Glaswegian accent there.
Possibly. Well, it didn't get all the expletives that usually come with it. But you think to yourself, well, okay, if you had that information, you had that knowledge, why did you do it? And I get why they did it, because we're in an industry that if you don't do it, someone else will. And there'll always be someone who does it cheaper. It's project-based,
and we've all got fixed costs and et cetera.
And so it's about taking time incrementally to shift it away from those things. I mean, even if you think about our industry, historically, lots of plans to fail. So retention, lots of complaints about retention. Why do we need retention? Because we continually fail. And retention is the plan for the failure. So we're in an industry that says, we're going to plan to fail here, right? When we were talking earlier about delay damages, when I was listening in the podcast, you're going, well, that's the plan to fail. Here's what happens when you fail. Well, actually, you know,
we have to have in.
So I know you need to have all that because stuff happens, and there is always an element of the unknown. But actually, can we shift it around a wee bit to have the plan for success? You know, even when you talk about programs and people are cutting the program and cutting the program and cutting the program, you got to have that conversation about, okay, but is that sensible? I might not be paying this in the tender price, but am I paying it in the final account?
100%. No, I agree with you. And I think you talk a huge amount of sense. And, you know, it's really easy in these conversations, you know, when, and I do feel this now, I'm running a project for 10 years, but where you're away from the day-to-day challenge of running a sub or a main contractor, and, you know, there's a finite amount of time until your fixed costs start, they've got to be paid, right? So just a couple of questions to wrap up. And I want to ask you one for the younger QS cohort and one for commercial leaders. I'll start with the younger QSs. And this is the person with the aspiration to become a commercial director. What's your advice to the younger QS who wants to become a commercial director?
Stop wanting to become a commercial director.
Okay.
Want to influence things in a different way.
Okay.
Want to create a better scenario. Have the imagination to see things differently. the commercial director will come if you do all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to be a commercial director. I want to be a commercial director. I
Too
want to be a
binary
commercial
almost.
director. You know, I'm focused on the goal. Well, actually, it's all the stuff that goes around that that's going to make you that. So it's dead easy for me to say.
Yeah.
Sat here, I've already got the title, all that sort of stuff. People go, I'm very good. You know, you've done it. But actually, looking back, saying, well, actually, what are the things that you need to do to make that happen? That's the outcome.
Yeah.
What's the input?
Yeah.
So the input comes from you. So try your very best to think about that and think about when you're making decisions around how much money am I getting now? What conditions do I get now? What does my car look like?
Think about the short, medium and long
what
term.
What number goes with my iPhone?
Yeah.
You know, all of that kind of stuff. Think about what does that look like in the longer term?
Yeah.
And give yourself the choice. So that would be my advice. Stop thinking about the title. If you want to become a commercial director, it's all the other stuff that you do.
Think about the inputs. No, that makes perfect sense and is great sense. And then, so for the final question, if I ask you in a similar vein, so commercial leaders, be it commercial managers or directors, what's your kind of advice to them for creating world-class commercial leadership in 2026?
Well, no apologies for it being the obvious answer, because it's the obvious answer. And that is, think about the people in your team. Make sure that they are getting all of the things that they require to allow them to make great business decisions.
Yeah.
So make sure that they are adequately focused on what it is that they need to do. Make sure they've been given the tools, including the training, to be able to do that. Make sure that they are enthused about what they want to do going forward. Talk to them about their aspirations.
Yeah.
Be honest with them about what's realistic and what's not.
Yeah.
Commercial director at the age of 21, you can probably do it, but will you be any good at it?
Yeah.
Have you missed out on the fundamentals? So it's that about getting with the teams and understanding what it is that they need and what they want in a changing world.
Yeah.
Because when I first started, as we've spoke about during this, massively different. And my thoughts about the world of work would be massively different from younger people today.
Yeah.
People entering the industry. And sometimes I think we forget that. We get locked into, well, of course they should be here until midnight and work the weekend and all that sort of stuff. Well, why wouldn't you? Right?
Yeah. I did it.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that would be my ask of everyone, is to say, right, okay, well, let's understand what the team needs. Yeah. Let's understand how the team is being made better all the time. How do we allow them the space, the freedom within a framework to make things incrementally better? And not the big, huge things, because maybe that's not in their sphere of influence.
Yeah.
The smaller things, how they make an allocation sheet better, just let them.
Yeah.
So that would be my ask for people within the industry.
No, it's fantastic, Mark. And honestly, I have genuinely enjoyed listening and speaking with you. And there's things I've taken away from it in terms of, that sphere of influence. I think for the focused, kind of ambitious younger professional, building that sphere of influence is a really interesting way of framing your career and the inputs that you can have. And that word imagination sticks with me quite a bit about, I've been saying curiosity. I've needed a new word on this podcast. It's good that you've given me one.
Well, I've just disagreed with everyone in the last 250 episodes.
No, but curiosity, I have kind of been leaning into that a lot, but it's actually they're one of the same thing, right? So if you're curious, then can you imagine how things could be very different? And you've said it all with a delightful Glaswegian accent. So I am very grateful for you coming on the show, Mark. Honestly, really enjoyed that.
Been great to talk about it. I've really enjoyed it myself.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thanks.